All right, peace, family.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the True Love Movement Hour. Host Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fiyah.
We apologize for the delay in today's show. We had some technical difficulties that we were not able to overcome in time for showtime. But we're live now. We're live here on Facebook Live from the True Love Movement page. We know typically we're from uh, the normal Ayana Shack page, but everybody may not be a Facebook friend. So you can like the True Love Movement page. Of course, we want you to do that anyway. And catch this broadcast live right here on the True Love Movement page. So what's happening, Mama Fiyah?
Well, we know it's a beautiful day out there. This has been a beautiful, way to get into fall. The weather's been nice. It's still been warm. Today, I had an opportunity, of course, to go to super class with Greer, which was beautiful. And then I went over to I Am My Sister
Okay.
over at A.L. Davis Park. They had a play date.
All right.
So that was nice. The children enjoyed it. They had face painting and games, and I got the chance to see my sister Nikki Radical One, or Nikki Bird,
Yes.
on Facebook, and it was good to just see her, give her a hug and some encouragement. So shout out to my sister Nikki.
Yeah, right on.
And shout out to Kendra Joy. Love the work that she's doing. It's focused on fun ways to get your mind, body, and soul right.
All right.
Especially for sisters. And she's working on unity between sisters, and so I want to be a part of whatever she does with this, because it's just, it's the same work.
Right.
It's uplifting and empowering Black people, specifically Black women, knowing that it's an important, and we are the key to this. We are the key.
Right.
And so let me turn it down because it's. So shout out to Kendra Joy for the work she's doing with I Am My Sister. You can like them on Facebook as well, and come on out to her events that she does as well.
Right on, right on. The weather was nice out there today.
Beautiful.
It's October 15th, 2016. I mean, it's almost over for 2016, Mama Fiyah.
It sure is. And it's been a trip. It's been a wild ride.
But it's been a good year.
Yeah. I mean, you have to think positive for every year.
Definitely.
It's been, eye-opening year. Say that. It's been a year of growth, for True Love Movement especially. But it's been rough. They've been having some rough patches, amongst our people, for our people, And when has it never been rough?
Right. We've only known a rough ride here in this place here, the United States of America. So.
Yeah. When has it never been rough? But I like the way you keep it on the optimistic, keep it on the bright side. That's important for us as a people to see what is working.
Definitely.
Because there are some things that are working. Can we wake up more? Can we get better? Yes.
Absolutely. Shout out to our brother Supreme Vision Kasim. What's happening, man?
All right.
Thank you for joining us, brother. Very good law support of True Love Movement. But we were just talking the other day with some brothers down at the mosque about on 10/10, 16, when the brother Nuri Muhammad was there, and he did a wonderful talk for our brothers on That's What Men Do. And we were all talking that, a year ago, that day, we were all out in D.C. answering the call from the minister. So it's good to see that brother Kasim on here, man. Thank you, brother. So today's show is, and I know we've been, last week, powerful show, talked about the birth of a nation.
That was just last week, huh?
That was just last week. Yeah, that was just last week.
Yeah, there's been and just to stay there just for a second, there's been a lot of buzz around Birth of a Nation.
Right.
And I don't pay too much attention to like anybody really but my people.
Right.
And what my people are saying, but there's so much push and pull about the movie itself, and I don't want to go on without saying a shout out to the brother for the idea of making the movie. Whether I particularly liked the movie or not, it was brave to make it. Thank you for, having a passion to tell the story. Um, so I just wanted to make sure that that was said, that we do have to support our brothers. We have to support our sisters, no matter where they are, you know, no matter where they are, race first, Brother Shay.
That's right.
Like, our people first. And we'll deal with the hurt. Everybody hurt. Everybody got that same, not that same personal experience, but that same historical experience as a people.
Right.
So we all got our stuff. And I really wanted to curse, but we all got our stuff.
Sure.
Well,
I think you can if you want.
I can't I? But we all have our stuff. And it could look different ways. It could look like, drug problems, alcohol problems. It could look like self-esteem problems. It could look like issues with sexuality, or issues with sexual perversion. It could look like, wanting to be white or wanting to be assimilated into white. It could look so many ways. And so when we start judging our brothers and sisters as harsh as a white man would, we are in trouble. And I'm not saying that you can't help people and you can't say, well, that person is sick, whatever. But when we start judging them as harshly as white people would, we're forgetting something that, is important for all of us to know.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I mean, that's when the internalized racial inferiority comes out. When we start, I said we are using our white mind and not our right mind, and looking at our people. And it's important that we cannot forget that everything that we know and we've come to know, that we've learned about how to interact with each other, we have gotten that from white people. I mean, we had followed their lead on how to deal with, ourselves. So there's no wonder we have the venom for our own people, because we're
not short of that.
We're definitely looking at it through a different lens. We're not looking at it through a loving lens. We're looking at, that's where all the self-hate really comes out and manifests itself.
Well, we didn't hold any punches for talking about Birth of a Nation. We did say he told an important story, but we're not going to sit up there and be like, he's a genius. The movie is, a work of genius. We were truthful about, I know I was truthful, Brother Shaq truthful too, about how the movie made us feel, for me especially, and the things that Brother Shaq thought about it. So there's a lesson in that, meaning we can support our brothers and sisters without lying to them and saying, yeah, brother, that movie was Grammy, that movie was so beautiful and live. I'm going to show all my children. I'm so, we didn't lie. We just do still support the brother. We bought tickets to the movie. We started off on a good note. It's not that the movie is trash. It's just that it was a missed opportunity, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that I don't support him. And there's a lot of stuff talking about black feminism and black feminists and what they're talking about, as well as, just women, black women in general, and how they don't support him because he has a white wife.
Right.
And, a lot of drama surrounding this thing. And really, if you go with the idea of race first, then
that takes care of
it. Takes care of it.
Right.
You're not judging them harshly and saying, black man, you should never have a white woman. I mean, come on, y'all. We got to unify first before we deal with them issues.
Right. We really can't throw anybody away. There's just too few of us for us to be throwing anybody away. They raised an interesting point about that, and I think that as much as the film has been a lot of the talk, now that the film's been out for a little over a week, I hadn't checked back again to see how it was doing in terms of generating revenue. But that was the question that was posed: is can this brother really be pro-black with a white wife?
I mean, are we actually going to dig into that?
Well, I mean, not on this show, or maybe later on in the show. But that was one of the things that was raised that I happened to notice. That, and it's interesting too that whenever our people do any kind of a thing, what we try to do it as an individual. We try to move as an individual, but our experience in the United States has been a collective one. And so even when this brother made this film, there's been more talk about all of his personal life and
Come on.
everything else that
We
he
don't do
does.
that to white directors, do we?
No, the white directors aren't scrutinized as much, and they don't dig into the. I mean, but I mean, I understand why. We do understand this is a very racist environment. It always has been, and it was built that way, and it was built to be that way. And so, part of the insanity, I think, that is always ensued with our people is that we're still trying to assimilate, or we're trying to deny that this is a racist environment, and or we're just completely distanced from the fact that this is how it started. The United States started off as to be the white man's heaven. That's what this thing was designed to do. And people who were not white have always been looked at as the serving class for the people who were. That is the design and the function of this place. So there's nothing surprising about that. But if we don't really keep that in mind, it does make us think, oh man, that's messed up. That's not fair. And they're wrong for that. But this is just the nature of what we're experiencing. So I don't know, Mama Fiyah. That's kind of what I think about this. The brother Nate was Nate Parker in the Birth of a Nation movie.
Yeah. And that was last week's show.
But it's a good segue for this week's show.
It is.
This week is we're looking at 13th.
Yeah.
By and I know C Freedom really, she's a big fan and supporter of the dear sister Ava DuVernay, who's done a lot of really brilliant work. And this 13th is an episode. It's on Netflix, right?
It's on Netflix.
Documentary on Netflix.
That's how we saw it.
And it's really dealing with the 13th Amendment.
Man.
And she did it in a very skillful and crafty way. And I like that.
A creative way too. I mean, shout out to the sister Ava DuVernay. Not she's a director. She directed it and wrote it.
Right.
And produced it. Well, I don't know if she produced it, but to be a black director is huge.
Right.
A black woman director is even huger.
Definitely.
And so she chose to make this documentary, and we're going to reflect on it in a minute, but I just want to spend some time to give her shine and props that, she's made certain things. I think she did Selma. As well as some other
Queen
things.
Sugar.
Queen Sugar.
That C Freedom has been showing every other week.
Yeah. So this documentary didn't have to be made.
Right.
She didn't have that to do.
Right.
But she did. And so that activist in her wanting to use her power to bring information, thank you.
Yes,
Sante, Queen, because it's important. I mean, I don't think that I did learn something, definitely, but it wasn't like I hadn't had the conversation before.
Right.
But the way it was put together was very intriguing, done well, and kept your attention. Really every young person should watch this documentary.
Definitely.
Every young person. And everybody who is watching or listening, if you haven't seen it, you need to look at it tonight.
Definitely. And it won't be a spoiler because it isn't that kind of a thing. Many of our people are very familiar with the 13th Amendment anyway. I mean, the 13th Amendment has been around since 1865. So it's not that this is something that is new. But over the last, I guess every so often there is a surge in information surrounding the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and how they work together and so forth, and how that applies to today's black experience. And so to bring everybody up to it, I'm going to very quickly just read to you what the 13th Amendment says. And so the 13th Amendment, it's in the U.S. Constitution. It's a constitutional amendment. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's Section 1. In Section 2, it says, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Now, that was short, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there, Mama Fiyah.
Oh, yeah.
Because this whole idea of involuntary servitude, essentially it abolished slavery, it said that a person couldn't be a person. That's important to a person. Couldn't be legally made to be in bondage, not in a legal fashion. Um, that it would be illegal or illegitimate. And so, for those who have been following and keeping up with the presidential race, which I know a lot of our people are very politically driven and very, very interested in something like that. They've been talking a lot about this is a nation of laws and we are a nation of laws. And whenever I hear black folks talk about we, when referring to something like that, I'm always concerned. And I have a lot of black people that I really care, admire, and respect that use that we pronoun when speaking of the United States and this country and that sort of thing. But they're very interested in the fact that this is a nation of laws and there's a law for a lot of things. And so I learned that laws and so-called legitimate or legitimate access just has to mean that it's something is legal. It doesn't mean it's moral. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means that it is quote unquote legal. And that second section where it says Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation means that they can just create or write laws associated with this so long as people are not involuntarily made to do that unless they've been convicted of a crime.
That's right. And so the documentary is centered around the 13th Amendment and how it has purposely and deliberately affected our people,
Yes.
black people.
And that was supposed to be what set us free.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I had never known. What was a good eye opener to me is that it happened like this, meaning the slaves were freed and then they were, put into prisons. I mean, it would just happen that fast where
Right.
they were free. They were like, what are we going to do with all these black people? And they started putting them into prisons. And I mean, the way the documentary showed it is that there was no break. There was really no break from slavery to criminal, the prison system.
Yes.
And that has never really changed. They showed what I liked so much were the images used so that you could really see the rise in the prison population
Right.
After slavery, and then each 5 years or each decade after how it rose.
Right.
And man, mind blowing.
Yes.
Our people who are visual people need to see that and need to experience that. And it was very much like any of the other black documentaries that we've seen, like Hidden Colors, with people, sitting and giving information
Right.
that they knew. It was a lot of professors and stuff from universities. A couple of people I knew, Van Jones,
Right.
and a beautiful sister.
Melissa Harris Perry, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
Michelle Alexander. No, Michelle Alexander.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was going to say I didn't think she was in it, but
right.
just saying that it was in that style, but because it used these images, I mean, I just can't forget toward the end how they showed it spike.
Right.
It's still rising, y'all. The prison population, especially of black people on purpose, is still rising. And so our young people, Brother Shaq, True Love Movement always talks about the trap of the prison industrial complex, and how prisons are privatized and people making big money off of prisons. But our young people need to see it for themselves. They need to see this documentary and understand how big of a trap this is on purpose.
Right on.
So,
and I think too, they did the sister did a really wonderful job of showing, like you pointed out, incrementally how those numbers just jumped.
yeah.
And they jumped by several 100,000 every rip.
Yes.
And somebody mentioned in the documentary that as of currently there are more black people under lockdown in prisons than there were ever enslaved.
That's right.
Now, I don't know exactly where those numbers came from, but it's certainly believable. But how powerful is that? That you mentioned black bodies Black bodies went from being enslaved involuntarily to a new legitimate, again, a new lawful system, because slavery was legal. So this is a nation of laws. And so every time everybody who is not a person of color has always been subjected to laws, because these kinds of laws, like for someone who is classified or having a white experience, the 13th Amendment means nothing to them.
Right.
They've never had to think about it. It's never really mattered whether it's in there or not. And so this we have to really never forget and always go back to where this thing started. And this was always about some money. And that black people or African people or non-white people, let me just keep it on that. And we know everybody who is white today wasn't always white. That's important to know too. Everybody didn't become white at the same time in this nation. You have to go back and take a look at the history. But the idea and the racial construct of whiteness, in order for it to work, non-white people have to feed it, have to. And so they have legislated the control of black or black bodies, in particular, black bodies, to do the work, to do the labor, from the plantation.
Free labor.
Exactly, the free labor.
Yeah.
But the black person, the black human being is seen as the individual to serve white supremacy, to serve this white heaven that they intended to create here in the United States.
Well, let me say, Akil El Amin, shout out to you, brother.
Hey, what's happening,
He
man?
said it brought out a lot of information dealing with this political season. He said, but look at how they broke it down when slave work was dismantled by the 13th Amendment, and they made up for it with the prison industrial complex. And that's what we were saying before. It didn't even see it was on purpose. It was just a trap to keep black people slaves, and it's still happening.
Yes.
And so it was mind-boggling to see old footage of Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, and they using code words
Right.
to criminalize black people.
Yes.
Period. And it was amazing. Like, I wouldn't have never put those together in my mind. I know I had seen some of that footage, but to put it together like that stated the case that, it's a lot worse and it is so deliberate. Right. Deliberate is the word that, we should feel completely duped. And if you don't, if you do, we all do.
Right.
And if you do, then we need to do something about it then.
Yes. Because it didn't just go wrong and it didn't just get like this. What you were pointing out and what was done so beautifully in the documentary is it just pointed to the fact that this has always been the case. There was never genuine about we've been wrong. These people, these are human beings. Because part of it was that legally we weren't considered human beings.
Right. This is a whole amendment.
Right. Right. To say that, okay, now we're going to classify them as human beings and citizens. And that puts you under somebody else's rule. So we've always been under someone else's rule. We've always been under the rule of the government. And the government has legitimized its handling of black people to keep us in that same role from the plantation. So we walked off the plantation, we had no money. We only had the skills that we picked up and learned to serve the slave master. So they started with the Freedmen's Bureau because we were basically unemployed because we didn't have any work. But there still was crops and things that needed to be harvested. So they said, okay, go back to your slave master, and now he's got to pay you for your labor. So we just went back to the plantation, many of us did, and continued to do the work we had been doing for a very small wage and stayed indebted to the slave master.
Stayed indebted, right. And that's how the narrative was told to me, is that, they gave the slaves, they gave them a house.
Right.
And they gave them, tools or something. Mm-hmm. And then said, you got to pay me back for that. So you pay me back. but I had never seen it to the point where, you were released from quote unquote released or free from slavery, and then you went to jail. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That narrative knew that they just went and picked people up. They said for loitering.
Oh yeah.
Like
Vagrancy.
vagrancy. I mean, that's anybody on the street, y'all.
Right.
And then they showed, how the arrests are happening now for little and nothing. People get lost in the system.
And it's all legal.
All legal. People get lost, and they're not, So I'd like to talk about the prison industrial complex, Brother Shaq, because we teach on it. I had the pleasure of, as a young, maybe mid-20s, being a part of an organization called Blackout.
Mm-hmm.
And that organization was a national organization, and I actually started the New Orleans chapter.
That's right.
And,
sure
we did, it was arts as activism, but the main thing that we focused on was the prison industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was so beautiful about it, we did something called Lyrics on Lockdown, where we go into the concentration camps or behind the enemy lines, especially with young people. We go into adult ones, but it was so much easier to get into the young juvenile detention camps and tell them the understanding of what the prison industrial complex is, that
Right.
it is a business, and that you, young black man, you, young black woman, are, an important part of this business.
Yes.
And if you don't understand it and know that and see that as a trap, you will continue to feed it because it's modern day slavery. And so we did some really, really great work. I'm proud of Blackout New Orleans, especially because Blackout New Orleans had a little gangster to it, that was different from the other blackouts, though. And I learned a lot about organizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the prison industrial complex is heavy for our people, especially. And if we don't, so listen, I would like to focus on solutions to this thing, or what can we do? Because the documentary itself was beautiful in that it gave us the information in the way it gave the information, but really the only solution part of it was Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as at the end, she showed a lot of uplifting and humanizing pictures of Black people.
Right.
It was very beautiful. It was a very good way to finish the documentary because she had showed Emmett Till, she had showed, the slave Gordon was Mr. Gordon had all the whiplashes on his back. So she showed some, and then showing Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. I mean, she had shown so much that was so heavy that she ended it up with beautiful pictures of Black people, smiling and, their eyes. And so that was a good way to end it. But what do we do, knowing that this is real? What do we do after we watch 13? How do we change our understanding of us and how we relate to the prison industrial complex?
Right on. I think that's a perfect place to start. What do you think, Mama Fiyah? What's your position on prisons anyway?
So my position on prisons has been ever since being a part of Blackout and having to do this work and understand it, because I know I never liked police. I know that I never, I never really understood why, but I knew that Black people were targeted by police and all this. So once I got the information, like the lights were turned on about the prison system. The prison system is wrong. There is no reforming it. That we should have no prisons.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
That's a bold statement, and it's true. We should have no prisons. They are based on lies. They are based on falsehoods. They are based on racist practices. They are not based on rehabilitation. They're based on slavery and free labor.
That's
and
it.
So at the end of the day, we have to understand, as a people, we can't support prisons at all, any prisons. And so, there are people who are sick, and there are people who need rehabilitation. There are people who, the laws themselves are racist. So it's like, how can we, so that's my stance. It's like, free them all. Free all prisoners, all of them, especially the political prisoners. The political prisoners that are there just because they were fighting for their people, who are there and lost in the system. Mumia, all these beautiful people that are still in prison, sick and everything. Like, it doesn't matter. Angola 3, their story. It's like, I don't know. It's the move, brothers and sisters. Wrong is wrong. And so but I think that black people need to detox their minds from the thoughts that we need prisons.
Definitely.
Period.
Well, even the idea that we need prisons comes from our trying to assimilate into this society and trying to mimic and emulate the slave master. That if you're a so-called black person or a person of color and you think that people of color should be controlled by a force outside of themselves, then that is not in fact your natural mind, because that is your brother or your sister, and you don't want to be controlled. I have never met anyone who, and I always ask whenever I'm in front of classes and particularly young people, but I'll ask the group of people, who in here likes to be told what to do? And nobody likes to be told what to do. Although many of us lack some sufficient knowledge, our attitude is that we're a sovereign individual and we want to do whatever we want to do when we want to do it. And that is what's so-called freedom. And so if you're thinking that no, we need these laws, these external laws that are not really laws, but we need these laws, and that we need some kind of a system to enforce these laws and punish people for breaking these laws, then I think you're missing something. I mean, we're a very small group of people, and I know one of the things that has happened in the course of our time here is that in America is that we've taken on this notion that black people are monolithic and that we're all the same and we all have the same thoughts and ideas, and we completely ignore that there are 52 countries on the continent of Africa and untold numbers of tribes, and I mean it's ridiculous to think that we would all be the exact same mind anyway, and that we have to fit into that particular box. That's crazy. However, there's an arrangement here, a legal arrangement in America that deals with so-called black people a very specific way, and simply because of our blackness. And this is a nation of laws, and it is very legal, and there's a whole mechanism in place to keep the system going that enforces these laws and punishes for these so-called crimes. You mentioned vagrancy. When you don't have a job and you're trying to get somewhere and you're not supposed to be there, you get picked up. You get put to work. I mean, slavery didn't end because the country had a conscience. The Industrial Revolution was on the way in. They needed somebody besides Irish people to build those railroads and levees. They needed that.
Right. I mean, that's the point. That's the point of the prisons and of the big, huge boom in prisons.
Yes.
What was very, very mind blowing too was the criminalization of black people on purpose, so that they can serve as slaves in the prison system, so they can be picked up and and so Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and all of the presidents, let's just say that, have criminalized black people. Again. But let's just talk about that shift, because the movie stayed there with Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan and that exchange of hands. And then Bill Clinton. And I think they mentioned Bush, one of the Bushes. So we have to remember they criminalized black people on purpose. And they did propaganda, brainwashing, programming to criminalize black people.
And they admitted.
So guess what, y'all? When you criminalize black people, that comes from that.
Right.
That comes from that propaganda. They did that on purpose so that you can feel also that black people are bad, that black people are criminals, or if somebody was put in prison, oh man, they're dead to me now, or they bad people, they convicts, they criminals. We have to understand that came from them.
Right.
And so as a solution could be, a paradigm shift in the understanding that we do not need prisons. That for one, that our people are in prison for wrongly. Okay, because the judicial system is not fair. They have created things to just really destroy black people. We have to understand that fact first. That's a paradigm shift. Because I know there are some people that say, oh, wait, hold up, sis. You're talking about we don't need prisons. Hold up. Because I know your boy, he killed such and such and so and so. He needs to be under the jail.
Right.
But that mentality is the brainwashing. It's the programming that black people are bad and that black people in prison are bad people and they'll hurt you and they'll murder you. But what if you're in prison wrongly?
Right.
What if the whole system is stacked up against you and you're in prison wrongly? And then what are the problems that the people are having in prison? Because it's not being rehabilitated.
No.
So what are the problems and how do we fix those? How do we help people to fix themselves and uplift and empower themselves? We need to shift the paradigm on prison industrial complex when it comes from us, like what we can control. And we can control the way we look at prisons.
Sure. I agree with them, Mama Fiyah. I think that the consistently looking back at how we came to be this way is sensible. Like the sickness that we have as a people, they gave it to us. They made us sick. And I want you to think about if you had a school and you were a teacher and you taught some of your students these accelerated kinds of courses, and then you taught the other students these very decelerated kinds of mundane kinds of things. And if you did that for a significant period of time, like let's say 4 years, like people are in school, whoever it was that had the accelerated kind of courses and information and knowledge would be excelling in their endeavors. I'm sure of it. And I'm also sure that the group that got that deficient kind of learning, that they would not be. And it doesn't matter what color they are in this particular exercise, but those who are doing well were created, and those who are not doing well were also created. But when the ones who don't do well have problems, they have all kinds of deficiencies, and then they have other problems because of their deficiencies, then it's easy to say, what's wrong with them? That they're a problem. We should do something about them. We should do something about that. And we ignore the fact that, but they were created like that. Somebody made them like that for a particular reason. And so what we see in terms of the narrative is that the so-called powers that be are claiming that this whole prison industrial complex and all the laws that are associated with it are a response to the criminal behavior and the criminal activity that's occurring with disproportionately with black people. So it looks, because I know as you were saying, man, we shouldn't have prisons, so many of our people were thinking just what you said, that, oh man, so-and-so need to be locked up and this, that, and the third, but without dealing with what happened to so-and-so and what happened to so-and-so's people and his people's people or her people's people. You see what I'm saying?
Definitely.
We don't do that. We just take a snapshot of the individual. And so America made a nigger. America made niggas. There were no niggas in Africa. America made niggas, and now America is laughing and pointing a finger at niggas, saying that niggas got problems and America needs to do something about niggas.
Well, America is profiting off of niggas.
Yes.
They created a nigga so they can profit off of niggas.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Can't
is that the
forget
prison industrial complex is about profit and money.
Right.
Okay, it's not about human lives. It's not about rehabilitating. But Brother Shag, what if there were no prisons? What if there were no prisons? What do you do with somebody who's sick? You help them, And so, what does rehabilitation look like for our people that are locked behind enemy lines? For our people who are violent and aggressive, and maybe their moral compass, quote unquote moral compass,
right.
Is out of whack, or they don't have any morals or any. Because I feel like I govern me. And so I'm going to do the right thing because I'm clear of what the right thing is and what it feels like.
Yes.
And there's some people who can't they don't have that, or they've been through so much.
Right.
I've seen a lot as a counselor in New Orleans, despicable things that have been done to children, and you do create a monster. There's a way to create a monster.
Definitely.
By poverty,
Yes.
by abuse, neglect.
Yes.
And so I don't blame the mama. I know the mama, it has a lot to do with it, but what happened to her?
Right.
And then what happened to her mama's mama and her daddy and these kind of things? I mean, there's a story there, Brother Shaq. When we talk about that, there's a story there. There's a story in every person in prison has a story of how they got there. So when we talk about uplifting and empowering, and we talk about rising, we can't forget about our brothers and sisters behind enemy lines.
Right.
We can't forget about that. They are valuable, and they will, after being behind enemy lines, need rehabilitation. And what does that look like?
Right. The idea on a I would say, if you look at the history of this country and the formation of this thing, you'll see many times again and again and again and again and again, non-white people have always been used to build it. Like that's the whole point. Like it was never intended for people of color to enjoy their experience. We weren't regarded as human to make it more palatable for the people who did have a conscience to say, "Oh, that's just chattel. It's like everything else. It's a means to an end," because they weren't about to do the work for themselves. So the foundation of the thing, we can't lose sight of that. I feel about that the same way that I would imagine the so-called Jews feel about the Holocaust and Hitler. Like, they never forget that. They talk about it all the time. They teach their children about it.
But they also receive reparations for it.
And they got paid. Everybody's gotten paid but us. But I'm just saying, aside from that, the part we can control, I keep that present in my mind. I keep how we came to be this way in this condition in my mind, because that, if you don't, you will go insane, because you're looking at it and you're thinking, now they're
so big.
Yeah, it looks so big. Or now they're doing this to us. Now they're doing that. They're doing, it's like, oh, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. But it's always been that way. That is by deliberate design, because I asked this question: who benefits? Who benefits from black people being locked up? And it certainly isn't black people, but industries benefit. How many of those? She showed all those different companies.
She talked about Alec and all these different companies that you swear by.
Yeah.
Because you got to have your Coca-Cola,
and
you know you got to go to Walmart,
right,
and all these different things. Y'all, we need to wake up and starve them out, or even not even just starve them out, not even just focus on them. If we focused on us and the way we're treating each other, the way we're treating ourselves, each other, and people who have fallen into the trap of the prison industrial complex.
Right.
And just shift the paradigm on when we create, and I said we, not if, not when, I said when, not if, when we create a world, and not just a world, a group, a nation.
An experience, yeah.
For black people, we do not need prisons in it.
Right.
We will not need prisons. Okay? Not, no. And so let's start navigating ourselves to free. Right. All of us navigating ourselves to what is it going to look like? Who are you going to be? What is it going to feel like? How are people going to be treated?
That's right. The brother on Monday night, Brother Nur Muhammad, said it, and I'd heard him say it in other talks before, that the one thing, the best thing to really slay racism is black excellence.
Come on.
And to really think about what black excellence means. And I know it's difficult because we have been lured into this codependent living. The paternalism is real, and it's been real for a reason, because if you are codependent upon your oppressor, you will always have to serve him to get your crumbs.
Come on. You can say that again, Brother Shaq.
If you're always codependent on your oppressor, you'll have to make sure you serve him first before you get whatever crumbs that you get. So every time you make a move, he gets paid. And that was set up and designed, again, deliberately. But it was deliberately done for money. And the reason why money was necessary is because money is what you exchange for resources. And if you own resources, the America's always been about ownership. That's the whole game with America. It's always been about private ownership. And anything that is public is undesirable because that means the government owns that. And you don't own that. So when you have public housing, when you have public schools, when you have public parks and public playgrounds, those don't belong to you. They belong to someone else. And because they belong to someone else, the person that they do belong to decides what happens there. And you don't have power. So black people have always been a public people, because when you have a public people, you have a people without power, because all the power is in ownership. So if we intend to really come out of this condition and stay away from that, we have to get away from that. And we can't be afraid of that idea of withdrawing from our oppressor.
And let me tell you, Brother Shaq, it's hard.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's very uncomfortable to say, I'm going to pull my children out of school, out of quote unquote public school. I'm going to, I'm gonna get off the plantation, and stop working for anybody else but my people or myself. It's very uncomfortable because it's so much easier just to, and you know what, Brother
You
Shaq,
made
we
it.
talked about it. I fussed at Brother Shaq when I worked, when I worked as a school counselor, because I was doing such, I mean, let me tell you something. Excellence in all things is a quote from Booker T. Washington. Excellence in all things is how I run my life.
Yes.
It's excellent everywhere. Everywhere. I'm at home with my children, I'm excellent. I'm with my man, I'm excellent. I'm at True Love Movement in counseling, I'm excellent all the time. And so Brother Shaq called it the plantation. At the time, I was working for a charter school, doing all this excellent work. And I was just like, you know what, Brother Shaq, I don't like that, because people on the plantation, they could be doing excellent work. I don't like that. But Brother Shaq, was like, yeah, it's uncomfortable and it feels bad, but it should feel bad, you know. And I really love that about him, because he pushed me to understand that I would not be able to really shine and work my magic unless I was working for me, unless I was really working for the idea of what wellness looks like for our people. Not everybody sees, most people think they are free. Most people think they're free already, and so when you tell somebody you ain't free, that's a whole paradigm shift. And then really have the love and heart to fight for the rising of our people. That's a whole another, layer, because there are levels to this. There are levels to activism. There are levels to, the heart that you have for, and really the vision that we have for the rise of our people. So when Brother Shaq says on the plantation, now I understand what that is. That means continuing to work for white people, continuing to slave for them. And I don't care if you an athlete and you making millions of dollars, you still on the plantation, because you that master say run and you say, all right, boss, I'm a run. So money ain't even real. So the millions of dollars you got ain't even real, and a lot of athletes end up broke and distraught anyway. But that I digress on that. But Brother Shaq, you want to tell them a little about the plantation?
Well, I mean, the we talk about this a lot on the show, so this isn't the first time we're mentioning it or broaching that particular subject. And the idea that the work quote unquote workforce and labor system. I mean, listen to the words: human capital. Nowadays, you hear about human capital and human resources, and before it used to be personnel. There's always been an idea of how to extract work from people. And, the plantation system preceded the paternalistic system. We talk about paternalism here on the show all the time. I mentioned it just before when you were talking just now. The idea that the slave master would provide for and care for and take care of slaves, his slaves, because it's his property. And as the pater, that's father in Latin. Um, we were socialized into that idea. We were socialized into the thinking that somebody's going to provide this for you and that somebody should provide it for you. We were socialized into that on purpose. We were made to feel helpless on purpose. We were given this idea that we can't do without on purpose, because what it does for us is it defies our logic. It gives us cognitive dissonance chronically, because when we understand that this whole plantation thing is killing me and that it means me no good and that it's just going to use me up, we are still thinking, but I mean, I got to do that because I've heard so many people, so many black people who many of them were well-to-do black people, educated black people. They would always say, it's just what you do. They were resigned to the idea that, it's just what you do. You try to get a good job somewhere, a good job, they called it, and work on it for 30 years, depend on them to provide, you with everything, and then you sit back and retire. And that's just what you do. And they wanted to fit in because our people. That's the other thing too. Now, you're rewarded for fitting in. I witnessed yesterday a brother who has his own business who was harassed by government officials and representatives. He wasn't doing anything wrong, and he actually wasn't even doing anything illegal by operating as he was, but he was being targeted and harassed, as he had said that wasn't the first time, including having law enforcement involvement come out. And what all of this really was about was the fact that he is a black man who isn't depending on the white man to feed him. We're in a city of New Orleans where 52% of the black men are unemployed. Here's a brother who is not only created his own work, but he's employing other people. He is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the solution and a move forward in the direction of black excellence. But of course, they can't make any money off of him, and that's the problem. He's there not to serve his own needs, but he's there to serve the needs of his master. The black people got the memo long ago that that's why black people are here. That's why black people are here in this country. So there's all kinds of creations that come from that to keep black people, thinking about this American dream, trying to be a part of it because you get rewarded for being part of it, playing the game, as they say. I met a brother recently who was a judge, and this brother was much older than I was. Brilliant brother. But he told me, quite frankly, he says, man, there's two me's. There's the me right here with you now, and there's the other me when I'm, on the bench and I'm in that particular capacity. And I just said, brother, how sad. How sad that you are more than a half a century old and you've quote unquote ascended or attained some things and you're not able to be authentically who you are. You're not free. And he agreed, but he accepted that that's just what you do. So we are living diminished kinds of experiences or diminished qualities of life in this American experience, trying to fit in. We still can't get that. That's the part that lets you know that ain't even our thing in terms of a pursuit. Because even when you play the game, you do what they tell you to do, you don't graduate to whiteness. You don't graduate to enjoying the arrangement that benefits you simply because you showed up. So there's no point in that. If we're going to do something, we could take all of our know-how and ingenuity and creativity and use that for ourselves to get out of this condition, to get away from this codependency, Mama Fiyah.
That's right. Thank you for sharing that, brother.
Yes.
And I think the way that we view the plantation as being wrong and not powerful to have, and for people to be on them, we should look the same way as prisons. That it's wrong to have plantations and it's wrong to have prisons, period. And then if there are people who need support and rehabilitation, that we figure that out. We figure how to rehabilitate our people because we know our people need something specific to deal with not only what they've endured in this lifetime, but what has happened in us from the past. So, yes, it's uncomfortable.
That's the whole point.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point.
If we are going to rise, y'all, we can't stay comfortable.
And Mama Fiyah, look, I don't know about you, but I've never really experienced a lot of comfort in my life. And it had nothing to do with my abilities, but it's just the circumstances that we live in. So it's important for us to look at the truth. If you are identifying or having a black experience, if that is in fact what's happening with you, then you couldn't have really been comfortable. And I mean, you couldn't have really been comfortable universally. That's what I'm talking about, universally. Like I listen to many times in various trainings and things that I do, I listen to white people talk about how much they enjoy being white. And they start off, they're very, very shy about talking about that because they've never really had to think about it.
Come on.
They've never even had to think about what they like about being white. But when they get started, oh man, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's the kinds of things that black people, especially the black people in the room and black people everywhere, have never experienced. So we don't even know what it is to have that kind of an experience. And it was interesting though, and you just talked about comfort. We understand through doing a lot of work and research, and I definitely credit the People's Institute with helping me to really arrive at this bit of knowledge, that white people, so-called white people, in this package or arrangement of racism, really come to expect that they have a right to be comfortable. That everything is about them being comfortable. That if something gets a little uncomfortable, that they just shut it down. They don't even deal with it. Right. And so, but as black people, we don't have that option. I mean, we got to deal with it no matter what it is, how hard it is, how heinous it is. We have to confront it and deal with it. That's why we pride ourselves on being strong. Even the black woman is described as strong. You know what I'm saying? That's a quality that she must possess. And if you have to be strong, it's because there's something that you're up against. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's something that you're up against.
I don't know if they talked about this. I might have missed that part. But the people that are in prison for quote-unquote nonviolent crimes.
Yes.
That they're not hurting. They didn't hurt anyone. Maybe they had something illegal in their pockets, but they didn't hurt anyone. Mm-hmm. Just the simple idea of that, Brother Shaq, just is baffling. Because it's like, where do you think the drugs come from?
Right.
Who circulates the drugs and why? Why do you think people have to sell drugs at all? Black people, and why do black people take drugs?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, we know what black people take.
And so, like I said, there are levels to all of the understanding of why black people are in the state that we're in, and much of all of it is deliberate.
Yes. Somebody else is controlling us, and they put us in this condition.
That's right. And so it's not that we're saying don't own up to your shit. It's not that we're saying don't, just say, oh, white people did this to us. White people did this to us. So we just, defeat it.
No.
We have to look at it. We have to really, really accept that we fell into a trap and we are entrapped, we're enslaved, and then decide what it takes for us to be well enough to pull ourselves out of it.
Well, that's the only way it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: ain't nobody coming to save you.
Come on.
That's just something, if you looked at if you did see the birth of a nation, they did explore that. Ain't nobody coming to save you. So somebody gave that narrative out there so that you would just wait, keep on keeping on until you die, and meanwhile they were able to profit. So we know that. And so it says ain't nobody coming to save you, and the people who are benefiting from you being exploited the way you are definitely not going to set you free, because that upsets the arrangement. Like this, in order for this thing to work, you got to play your part. Black man, black woman, black child. You have to remain dependent upon the people who benefit from you being in this situation. So they have, you pointed out all the traps, and they've set it up to where that is your trajectory. There's not a thing that you're doing, and I want everybody to hear me, there's not a thing that you're doing where at some point you're not depending on somebody white to make something happen. And I would mention to say that is true for all of us, including this broadcast. The black people don't own this, the FCC, and didn't come up with this particular technology, or at least don't own the technology. So we have to look at the truth of everything that we are surrounded by this.
Yeah.
And it is a huge thing. But I mean, we have to struggle against it. There's no way in the world we could be complacent with this arrangement where we are on the bottom of it. And then what our white mind does to us too, that is also very dangerous because of our orientation to power, because of the way we've had this experience. We are trying to be closer like white. We are trying to, that's what our aspiration is. We want to be like white, because white's got everything. White controls everything. White has all the resources. We want to have that too. And so we're pursuing that, and we're chasing they're chasing money, like, brother like to say, we chasing that, but it ain't working out for us the way it worked out for them.
That's on purpose.
Exactly.
Because it will never, as long as we're in that system, it will never work out.
Because it's not this is not our system.
Mm-hmm. And they, some black people have money, but
they only have as much money as the white folks let them have.
Right. And then if they caught up and get, arrested, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Wrongly, they may get shot, no matter how much money you got in your bank account.
You can't buy your way out of blackness, but we have to understand that is deliberate. And we keep saying that because you mentioned earlier about our people doing drugs and why they do drugs. I'm convinced, Mama Fiyah, with oppression, and I know there's not ever been a really comprehensive study done because it would be so large, and all it would do is prove what we know to be true. But there is, our people, the incidences of so-called mental illness and all of that is just really, it's ramifications of our condition.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? We hadn't been a whole and healthy people for centuries, at least in America, and I don't even know what we were before that in terms of our collective minds. But we've been sick for a long time, and so we didn't suddenly get well. The only thing that's happened is time has passed, and we've just reproduced generation after generation and born into them the same kinds of sickness. So we have to really look at the truth of that, and not be confused that things are just bad lately or things are bad now. That's something that we have to stay focused on to keep our sanity. Our people are medicating, and they're self-medicating because it don't feel good to be black, and everybody wants to feel better. But guess what? The way we're feeling better is we are still enriching our oppressors, because they're the ones who are manufacturing and producing the things that we're taking to feel better from the oppression that they gave us.
Come on. They talked about crack, and they talked about, the stiffer...
the mandatory minimum.
But the stiffer fines for crack than powder cocaine.
Yes.
And, how racist, how more racist could people be? And in your face with it, just because you're poor and black. And so, Brother Shaq mentioned about the mental health component of it, and our people do suffer from depression, Brother Shaq.
Oh yeah.
And I call it oppression depression.
Right.
Because it can be alleviated if the oppression, the heaviness of the oppression was alleviated.
Right.
That our people are not, classically mentally ill. Now, we do have many of our people who are mentally ill, for sure. And I'm not trying to, say that doesn't exist. But I'm saying many of our people suffer from oppression depression, Brother Shaq. Because you know that feeling like your back is always against the wall,
Right.
like you can't win,
Right.
those feelings, that's oppression depression. And when you feel like you have to drink or you have to smoke weed, you know what I'm saying? So many people say, well, that's my medicine, you know what I'm saying?
It is.
Or that's the healing of the nation, that because I got to really deal and cope with this. That's oppression depression, young my people, because we have all we need to be naturally high, when, inside of us, but we're facing a system that's extremely debilitating.
Right.
And so, hey, lax it.
Right. We're fighting. We are fighters, and we pride ourselves on being fighters, because we're claiming that we're not going to let our enemy get the best of us. But right now, and for as long as I can remember, we haven't been winning this fight because we're not fighting it the right way, in my view. Now, with that said, we too have to talk in code and use code. And this broadcast isn't the time or place to talk about the particular actions, but do understand, look at and examine history and see that what we have done has gotten us here. And we hadn't gotten anywhere, and I want you to get this good. Please listen to this. We haven't gotten anywhere that our enemy hasn't allowed us to get. I want y'all to really, really understand that whatever so-called progress that you think black people have made has only been made because the enemy shifted some things around. We did not bring it into existence through our own force. So we have to look at the numbers and understand mathematically we are a very small group of people in this place. And so many of us that are here are locked down. But even if everyone who was locked down was made free and let go free today, we would still only account for a little bit more than 12% of this entire population. 71% of this population benefits from the arrangement, and they're not about to change that simply because we don't like it anymore or because we're uncomfortable. And in order for us to get a change, we have to really consider, would we get justice, and could we have a real fulfilling, meaningful quality of life in this particular nation, under this corporation?
Come on. Well, I thought was interesting is how they showed in parallel the rioting and the marching that was done decades ago and what's happening now. And y'all, as much as I love my people, and yes, we have to do something. We have to feel like we're doing something. But y'all, the marching does not work.
Right.
Has it worked?
It's the marching, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? We have to consider. We have to do something. We can't sit on our hands. But truly
I don't
enough,
think marching is the active thing that's going to move the needle on freedom for our people.
well, what we can do is we can look back at the history of marches and those kinds of actions and sit-ins and all the kinds of things that our people have been doing to try and be recognized by the people who benefit from us being invisible. See, that's a heavy duty thing. Trying to get your oppressor to see you as a human being, the way they see themselves as a human being, and them saying that they're not interested in doing that, Not simply because they hate you, but if they do that, then they can't force you to serve them. And that's a problem for them because the whole arrangement was built off of that. And there is a misunderstanding, I think, that racism is about somebody who is another color not liking you or you not liking somebody. And that is not what racism is at all. You know, racism, as defined very clearly by the brother, the doctor, Malena Karanga, and regardless of what we think he did or did not do, his definition for racism was very adequate in that it was clear, it's concise. You have racial prejudice plus power. And when you have racial prejudice and you add power to that, for one, black people cannot be racist because we don't have that kind of individual nor systemic or institutional power. We are denied that because of the color of our skin. It is a very simple arrangement. So the idea that this is a small thing and we're saying that people don't like you and no. That's not what it is at all. But we have to look at our worldview. And we also have to study our oppressors. We don't study our oppressors enough because if we did, we would certainly be able to deal better with ourselves. And what I mean by that is you may have to put on your white mind. I mean, you use it all the time. You use it every day. Some of us use it more than others. But put on your white mind to try to see what it is that your oppressor is seeing. Because I think that will help guide your actions. I mean, look, if all of our people, as much as we talk about boycotting and we talk about the black dollar, and I'm certainly have always been someone who talked about economic power for black people, and even looking at the $1.1 trillion number, if it is in fact the good number, but look at it though. If we stopped buying everything that was made and produced by our oppressors, if we stopped today, they wouldn't have to shut down. You have to understand there's not enough of us to really shut them down because we're not buying it. So math is important on this. Math is really, really, really important. And it's the same thing for all of us who are very, very enthralled by the political process. If every black person who is eligible to vote in this country voted for any presidential candidate, it has nothing to do with who's going to be the president. That's important.
Yes.
That's important. You LOL, Mama Fiyah. That's important, and it's important mathematically. I know our people fought and died for the right to vote. And I mean them no disrespect. Because the only reason they did that is because they were operating off the understanding that if we had the same rights that the so-called white man had, then we would have a different experience in this particular land. But what they didn't know is that the racism never intended for us to have those rights. Racism never intended for us to be have a legal status as a citizen. Racism never intended for any of that. So by and large, the greater majority of the people who live in this place are very disinterested with this whole idea of what black people are experiencing or what black people are doing, simply because they don't have to. They can distance themselves from it and are at this point have been offended, I think, by the amount of attention that, Black Lives Matter and other different movements are garnering in their news media. And so what we have mistaken for momentum in many ways has just helped fuel the racist rhetoric and bring it out a little bit more so that we can deal with it. Because it's always been there, but now we're offended because we're talking about what people are saying about black people publicly like they can't do it. This is how these people feel. And it's no different than, Mama Fiyah was, when you moved away for a minute, I was talking about the economic piece. We kind of miss it because even when we boycott certain establishments and say, look, I'm not going to spend my money at this place, it doesn't matter to them. But they still understand. They keep their eyes on the prize. They'll come out and say they'll make some kind of an adjustment or a veiled apology because what matters is that they get you to spend the money. So if they got to tell you, we were wrong, we're sorry, and you come on back, that doesn't mean they respect you. That doesn't mean that they really care about you. That just means they're going to say and do what's necessary to get you to spend your money with them because that's how they're able to keep you in this condition.
Brother Shank, we can't keep doing what we've always done
No.
because it's not working.
No.
So we have to do something bigger, wiser, something different, and really different, so that we can have a different result.
Definitely.
And really understand what we're going for. People are confused about what we're going for too. Because if you want to be equal, you know what I'm saying? If you want to be equal, that's not what we're going for, y'all.
And I think too, we'll have to really look closely at the one thing that I know that we really want badly, that I see particularly with this generation. We want to have an individual experience. We want to experience life as an individual, not as a collective group of people. We want to be an individual and we want to be recognized as an individual. But the insanity comes in because the people who are radical individualists, as our good brother Walter Umrani, he coined that, our people who are radical individualists don't see the arrangement that racism is. So while you're trying to do your thing over there and be a radical individual and say, well, I'm different. I'm not like them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like that. I'm different, and I don't see no color. While you're over there doing that, you're still being dealt with based upon the your racial makeup and the arrangement that benefits white people here in America. So I don't know, Mama Fiyah, give us the rise up right now moment, because again, we're not going to be able to get into this in terms of tactics in a Facebook Live broadcast. That would be irresponsible. But we would, Mama Fiyah, give us something that we can move forward on today with knowing the 13th Amendment, what it says, what the documentary was about.
Yes. Everyone should watch the documentary 13. And then once you've watched it, make your children watch it. Everybody in the black community needs to watch it. With the understanding that we are rising and will rise. And so how do we rise with this new information, or this information for the first time understanding how we fit into the equation of the prison industrial complex?
Definitely.
And so take some time tonight before you sleep. It's a full moon soon.
Yes.
Take some time and visualize what it looks like to be black, and in control of yourself and your people, what it looks like to be powerful.
Right.
What black and really powerful looks like, and self-sufficient and mighty and well. Visualize that in your mind's eye. And what does it look like? So watch the movie and visualization are the two things that I'm suggesting. Also, what does life look like without prisons? And then how can we criminalize our people?
Right.
For us. How
Right.
do we decriminalize that? Because that's not ours. That was programmed into us, y'all.
Yes.
Calling us super predators. Our babies, super predators and monsters. And so toward the end, you see Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, in the end, spewing this hatred. So take a look at that, y'all, and really dig in. I'm thankful to Ava DuVernay for her bravery.
Definitely.
And her skill. Thankful for the documentary.
Definitely. And I want to thank everybody who joined in the live broadcast, and everybody who will share this with us. We apologize for the delay due to technical difficulties beyond our control. We were able to find a way to make it happen. We apologize for the delay, but we're glad that you hung in there with us. And you know, check us out on Facebook. On Facebook, the True Love Movement. Uh, check Instagram. Yeah, True Love Movement on Instagram. Twitter at TLMHR. YouTube, True Love Movement Hour is the YouTube page. SoundCloud, True Love Movement HR on SoundCloud.
As well as our website.
Yes, and give us a call.
Give us a call. Give us a call. Show yourself some love. 504-309-LOVE.
And when you think about mental wellness, think True Love Movement. I mean, this is the work we do specifically formulated for our people because we are walking in it. We understand, and no one understands the way that we understand.
That's right. The website is www.truelovemovement.com. Go to the Sane Campaign tab just to see all the different things we offer for our people specifically. So mental wellness, Black mental health matters, and Black mental wellness. When you think Black mental wellness, think True Love Movement.
Definitely. So I'm Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fiyah.
For the True Love Movement, our family, we give thanks and wholeness.
Wholeness.
All right. Y'all have a beautiful week.
Cut it off from there.